debt limit of another $700 billion. That's irresponsible.
So let me echo Mr. Kelly and urge the Conservatives to stop playing partisan games and support small business with a vote.
The honourable member for Abbotsford.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that's really cute because I've met with Mr. Kelly 3 times in the last month. It is utterly irresponsible for this Liberal government to go 2 full years without tabling a budget for Canadians to see. That's the longest period in Canadian history without an economic plan. Without a plan, we can't reopen our economy, can't get Canadians back to work, or help the hardest hit businesses to survive. It's been 2 years. What's the date for the budget, or is the minister even listening?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are definitely listening, and I am so grateful to the Canadians who have participated with such enthusiasm in our pre-budget consultations. We have received more than 58,000 written submissions. We are working hard with Canadians from coast to coast to coast. But let me just say, our priority today is to do whatever it takes for as long as it takes to support Canadian workers and Canadian businesses. So let's get C14 passed so we can do that.
The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Yesterday, the president of Pfizer said the company does not support the Liberals' decision to move the time between the doses of their COVID vaccine from 3 weeks to 4 months. And Canada's chief science officer essentially said the Liberals' decision to do so was unethical. And today, Global News is reporting that numerous Canadian medical experts penned an open letter to the Liberals with grave concerns about the decision to delay the dose. Why are the Liberals advising a 4-month interval between Pfizer vaccine doses when no one else is?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I thank the honourable member for the question. Now that we have safe and effective vaccines in Canada, we need to vaccinate as many Canadians as possible. In order to maximize the number of people gaining some resistance to COVID-19, NACI, the National Advisory Committee on Immunization, has recommended that second doses can safely be delayed by up to 4 months. We will continue working with provinces and territories to ensure that communities are protected, and we will still follow science and evidence. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Well, the problem is, Mr. Speaker, there is actually no science or evidence to support this decision. And the parliamentary secretary's response gets to the heart of the matter. If we had more vaccine doses, if the Liberals had been on top of getting these vaccines delivered to Canadians, they wouldn't be recommending this extreme measure that no other country in the world is taking. So is he basically admitting that at this point, the Liberals are making vaccines decisions based on politics to cover for the fact that they've put Canada in the worst position in the G7 for vaccine distribution?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to start by mentioning that the NACI is independent in terms of an organization, but I want to go on to say that we are receiving 8 million doses of vaccine this quarter alone, 36.5 in the next quarter, and prior to the end of September, 118 million vaccines so that all Canadians will have access to a vaccine before the end of the summer. We have a plan. It's called a Diversified Portfolio Vaccine Plan, and it's working for Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, we are 2 months from Michigan's May 12th deadline for Line 5. Government officials said it was their preference to have Enbridge fight for Line 5 before they had to get involved. The minister even said the government didn't have a formal analysis of how many jobs were at risk. What is it going to take for this government to stand up for Line 5?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government is standing up for Line 5. We know that it is a vital source of fuel for homes and businesses on both sides of the border. We support its continued safe operation, and we are advocating for that. We are explaining, as we did during the NAFTA negotiations, that Canada is a safe and reliable supplier of energy to the United States, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, it's more than just fuel. It's thousands of jobs in Ontario. The Deputy Prime Minister forgets about jobs in southwestern Ontario. Canada's ambassador to the U.S. said that discussions have broken down between Enbridge and the government of Michigan. But the government's plan still seems to be to let Enbridge stand up for the jobs of Canadians while they sit on the sidelines. How much longer will the thousands of Canadian workers the Prime Minister just forgot, how long will they have to wait till they have someone standing up for their jobs?
Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as our government demonstrated during the NAFTA negotiations, and as we demonstrate every day during the COVID pandemic with our support for Canadian workers and Canadian jobs, we will never forget about Canadian workers. We will never forget about Canadian jobs, whether it is in southwestern Ontario or anywhere else in the country. Line 5 continues to operate and to supply refineries in Canada and in the United States, and we're going to continue to fight for Line 5.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaking of thousands more forgotten by this government, Mr. Speaker, 58,000 small businesses have closed due to COVID-19. Only half of the small businesses in the entire country are fully open, and less than 40% have full staffing levels. Small businesses are the backbone of our economy, and the Liberals have no real plan for their future. As main streets across Canada go dark, when are Canadians going to get a real plan to save small business?
Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives need to pick a lane. Last spring, when asked about what support the government should offer Canadians, the member for Carleton said, "You might want to address COVID-19 with big, fat government programs. We're Conservatives, so we don't believe in that." Yet today, the Conservatives are calling for support measures that our government actually created last year. The Conservative leader can't seem to decide what he believes in and seems ready to say anything to score cheap political points. We believe in supporting Canadian workers and Canadian businesses, and we're going to keep on doing that.
Naive. Let's not lose our talent. Canada's main competitive advantage has been our skilled workforce, and we are losing it due to COVID-19. Let's also acknowledge that aerospace exists in a fierce, globally competitive marketplace, and once our jobs leave, they don't come back.